ESPN has Ohio State and Alabama ranked ahead of the Georgia Bulldogs for the 2020s. Bill Connolly of ESPN released an article where they ranked the top 10 programs of every decade for the last 100 years, dating back to the 1920s. It's based on SP Plus. It's a rating system that has a lot to do with it. I don't completely understand it. I've been reading up on it, but it has to do with tempo, adjusted efficiency. I'm reading this. It's a measure of college football efficiency is essentially what it says here. And Georgia's ranked third. And I want this to be a reminder that not every list based on numbers, and not every list is valid in the first place, but not every list based on numbers is valid, because it's been a short decade so far, right? There's only been 3 seasons played, 20, 21, and 22. And Georgia, I don't know the overall record, but they've only lost 3 games, 2 to Alabama, 1 to Florida. So, yeah, the 2 losses to Alabama make it seem less crazy, but 29-1 over the last 2 years. Lost a couple games in 2020. You've only lost to 2 programs in 3 years. 2 national championships, an undefeated season, beat both of the programs ranked ahead of you. I do find it interesting, just because when lists like this get out, they get taken out of context. And maybe I'm taking it out of context a little bit, but lists like this they get taken out of context because by no means in the last 3 years has any program been better than the Georgia Bulldogs. Defensively, certainly not. Offensively, right, Ohio State's been better at times. Alabama's been better at times. Alabama's 2020, it is noted that Alabama's 2020 season, where they went, I think that was 12-0, right? COVID-shortened season, and Mac Jones, the Heisman winner, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, I think, finished top 5 or 6 as well. That season, I think, is what's carrying them. But they said, according to SP Plus, the 5 best teams of the last 3 years. Number 1 being 2020 Alabama, number 2 being 2022 Georgia, 3 being 2021 Georgia, 4 being 2022 Michigan, 5 being 2022 Alabama. And they have these rating systems, and the distance between them is so minute, right? So 2022 Alabama has a 98.9, right? Was 2022 Alabama great? No, didn't make the playoffs, lost to LSU, lost to Tennessee, a Tennessee team that ended up being a tiny percentage fraudulent, right? They're not this powerhouse top 5 team in the country. They just weren't. They were outside of that, whether it be a far drop off or not. So, but the distance between the 22 Alabama team is 98.9, and the 2022 Georgia team, 15-0, right? And you know all the details, 99.4, that's 0.5. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, these number systems. I just continue to read more and more of this, I'm sorry. But Ohio State hasn't broken the threshold yet, right? Especially under Ryan Day the last 3 years. Georgia has definitely been a better program than Alabama just in the last 3 years. I'm not talking about ever. I'm not saying Kirby Smart's a better coach than Alabama. I'm not saying Georgia's been a better program than Alabama, but the last 3 years, there's been no disputing that Georgia is the number 1 program in the country. I think I've had a lot of people, get in comment sections, whether it be on here or a different platform that we're on, and it's not just targeting me, but the rest of the crew. When we're talking about Georgia, it's always in such a positive light, and Georgia this, you guys are just homers. Guys, it's got nothing to do with that. We're being truthful, right? My job, I'm not supposed to spread lies. The ethics of journalism is not spreading lies. That doesn't fall under it. And so the truth just the last couple of years has been that Georgia is the best program right now, that they are the top dogs, no pun intended, maybe pun intended. And I don't understand how Alabama was way more efficient. I'd have to do a deep dive of the numbers, right? A deep dive of numbers that are getting so minuscule, right? Where it comes down to, it probably comes down to how efficient you were on second and third down and things of that nature. But when I saw this, it was bizarre to me. It's almost shocking because it's not, this guy is not ranking them based off of what he thinks. He's ranking them based off these numbers. And the fact that these numbers have come about is just very surprising to me. Because Georgia is better. They've got, I'll read you the list. I haven't even talked about the rest of the list. I've just talked about the top three. But Georgia, there's a big gap after Georgia, right? When we're talking about the numbers. Alabama at 1 with a 98.9. Ohio State at 2 with a 98.2. Georgia at 3 with a 97.8. Then it drops off. You get Michigan at 4 with a 91.5. Slowly gets worse after that. Michigan, Clemson, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Iowa, Utah, and Cincinnati. Those have been the best 10 programs of the last 3 years. Oklahoma had a really bad 2022. Notre Dame didn't have a great 2022. Utah, I could see how it's bounced around the top 10. I get Cincinnati, but Iowa at number 8. It just shows you that not all numbers are indicative of what actually happens on the field. What do you think? Links are down below for Double Dogs. Make sure you're checking it out. Thanks for watching.